We're still on the outcome of the Central Bank of Nigeria, which has generated conversations around the economy. Analysts say the rate cut is a cautious move aimed at balancing the need to stimulate credit and investments while keeping inflationary pressures under check. This business community has closely monitored the MPC stance with expectations that lower borrowing costs could ease access to credit for manufacturers, small businesses, and the capital market. For businesses and households, however, the big question is how quickly these cuts will translate into real relief in the costs of finance. My guest is a fellowship directorate at the Institute of Professional Economists and Policy Management in Abuja, Dr. Yusha'u Aliyu. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So first of all, let's have your take on this rate cuts by the CBN.
From the last Monetary Policy Committee 301, I have highlighted that I am expecting the central bank to begin to ease and moderate the MPR by disinflating the economy. Now, it is quite obvious that the 302nd MPC meeting has come up with my expectation, and I salute the central bank, and I salute the Monetary Policy Committee for taking this bold step to begin to ease the rate at which finances or funding of businesses is being assisted. The major things about investment is to make profit. But when profit margin is always on a threat of high interest rate, definitely a lot of jobs are at risk, and then consumers also are bound to be losing so much of their confidence in the market. So by beginning to see this, the ease, despite the fact that the MPR decision to maintain 27% is still on a tightening ground. And what we are expecting the central bank to continue to moderate and then study all the macroeconomic aggregate, those that are orthodox and those that are unorthodox. Remember, I said a month ago that this MPC is doing what the economy is looking for, because when inflation is easing, there is no way you continue to hike rate, because the two work simultaneously.
So to what extent is the current monetary policy transmission mechanism effective?
Yeah, of course it is effective. And like I said, I have expected this development for many reasons. One, this year, 2025, the central bank was able to hold the rate at 27.50 for 5 consecutive MPC meetings. But to have this at this critical time when inflation has dropped to 20.12 is very, very significant and very, very encouraging from the side of monetary intervention in the economy. Remember, the bank is highlighting so much of confidence in recapitalizing the banking institution. So if you are recapitalizing the banking institution and then you are trying to also stabilize prices in the economy, there is a need to carefully check the CPI, the moderation of MPR, and at the same time also to look into non-orthodox approach to the production in the economy. What I mean here is the central bank, quite okay, is now easing the financial market to have a better advantage as far as borrowing is concerned, so as to inject. We should not forget the fact that the economy is recovering. And in a situation where an economy is recovering and then facing so much of economic reforms and reforms that are yielding result, these results can visibly be understood when you look at the foreign reserve hitting 43. It's wonderful at this critical time to have $43 billion that is kept with a bank to take charge of any inconvenience as far as managing the floating exchange rate. that is in existence. That's the first one. The second one also, the CBN scientifically or professionally has attempted to touch the cash reserve ratio, which is also very significant as far as financial relationship between the central bank, the commercial bank, the central bank, and the merchant bank, and the central bank and the non-TSA transaction, which I have highlighted that the central bank must take a cognizant stance, because if you check the flow of revenues and sharing formulas adopted by Revenue Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Commission, you realize that there has been a drastic improvement in the sharing, and this sharing is posting a threat to liquidity in the economy. An economy that in August shared 2.2 trillion naira, which was previously compared to last year about 670 billion naira, and today the same year on year you have 2.2 trillion. Then there is need to look at how much is going to be reserved and for what purpose and at different intervals.
Okay, so critics are arguing, and of course you've mentioned some things. Critics are arguing that rate cuts send conflicting signals when inflation is still high. Do you think the CBN prioritized growth over price stability in this decision?
The central bank, we have to look back 10 years period from today. As at 2014, inflation was 11.5%, which was lower, even though it is not a single-digit inflation, it's a double-digit inflation. But for the economy, year on year, to translate inflation from 34% to 21.22% is a welcome development, and it's not just the effort of the bank. Let us be more clear and emphatic on this one. The bank has been given the right direction as with regard to monetary policy. But on fiscal policy, the government also has to share certain policy decision that is assisting revenue generation, that has brought about a tax reform. And that tax reform is very, very critical to the development of an economy that is targeting $1 trillion economy. So inflation as it is on double digit is still high. We are expecting the central bank, as they continue to moderate the MPC and look in carefully with the issue of cash reserve ratio, and then looking in at the productivity of the economy. I can say that based on the development aspect of the central bank, there is need to critically look into the food production, because the control of inflation today is favorable, especially that what has been disturbing with regard to inflation in Nigeria is food inflation. And everybody from each and every corner, an individual will realize that there is a drastic drop in inflation on core inflation and also on food inflation. But the challenges that is going to come out is the cost of input. The cost of input, farmers have been crying because they did not anticipate the food prices to crash. But as the president, who is also having a good listening ear, has listened and then decided to invoke on certain policy measures that are non-orthodox. That is by granting import duty exemption for importation of all agri instruments, including paddy rice and some product. Yeah, for the intervention of this, nobody has applauded Mr. President. But now that the food prices has crashed, meaning that inflation on food is reducing, and people can have, with their limited income, will be able to purchase good, especially food, to survive and then be more productive. So we're expecting the central bank to also use some avenues, especially with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, to have an intervention with the Petroleum Ministry or with the operators of oil industry, to begin to have lower costs in agricultural input, which will come directly from the bank to the producers, or directly from the bank to the component that they are giving us these services.
All right, so with all of this now, well, you talk about the fact that food prices have gone down. Well, there seem to still be some attendant irregularities going on here and there beyond the MPR cuts. But stakeholders also believe that there's often a disconnect between regulatory optimism and, of course, investor sentiment. Now, is Nigeria's capital market policy framework credible enough to anchor long-term investment decisions in this environment?
Long-term investment decision has to do with our sectoral priority. This sectoral priority are different components that are required to push the GDP. You cannot exonerate agriculture. You cannot exonerate manufacturing, and you cannot exonerate energy. These are components that we need as a nation. Remember, with a very big teeming population of above 230 million people, all of them has to consume. When you put the metric tons requirement, and you look at our productive capacity, and you look at the inflow of FDIs, now the bank has a role in trying to determine, after the recapitalization exercise, the bank's speciality, the bank's priorities, and then the target of the economy. These are things which must be done strategically to improve productivity in our economy. I have said a term without number that Nigerian economy has a lot of potentials because you have potential consumers, but when you have potential consumers, whatever they are going to consume, it has to do with the limited resources available. And that is why, in most cases, the Hixian model always tries to prove a point that consumers consume with an income, but they have special choices to make. And that is what makes them to be more engaging in a digital economy of this nature. Therefore, I am of the opinion, and I'm optimistic, that with the approach the central bank is giving, this one is that the bank is always listening. The bank listening to Nigerians, the bank listening to policy adjustment, and also the bank also listening to the cries of the common people. So the common people who are farmers, now the inflow of FDIs has to be directed directly into procuring an instrument that is required for the next production season. And government, there is need to make an intervention. There are several ways to make intervention, not just merely in the name of subsidy, but since MPR is lowered, now borrowing become more easier, and we are expecting the same central bank, after studying, probably before the next MPC meeting, 23rd to 24th of next month, that is of October, of November, sorry.
Yes.
We are expecting the bank to gather more information with regard to supply bottlenecks, with regard to the general price and stability of the production, and then look into how prices of input can be crushed. Government has 1 million measures to adopt to make sure that producers in agri continue to produce, producers of energy also come into limelight and then expand production so that our milling process of what we produce in this economy will have cheaper and then sustainable energy. We have to also maintain, as we are recapitalizing, we also have to maintain an additional labor which can be easily understood by increasing number of people that are going to be employed in different sectors, because you cannot be putting to the economy additional gains in terms of foreign exchange. You have additional gain in terms of general productivity of the GDP improvement. So what we must be doing is to try and attach collective prosperity with our economic aspiration and our planning process.
So what is in it for investors? How does this affect investor confidence in Nigeria?
In investors' confidence, the first thing, no investor is investing just because he wants to be guided to enter paradise, as proposed by Adam Smith. all investors are targeting profit. And like I told you, the central bank, when recapitalized, after recapitalizing, look at the high number of banks that are recapitalized. So if investors are coming and then different sectors have been attended to, then we are thinking that the investor confidence will continue to build, because at any point in time, whatever you invest in the economy, you are going to reap the benefit. Remember the MPR, just in an attempt to disinflate the economy, reduced by 50 basis points, is still under tightening situation. And all investors will be taking out what they invest in profit. So therefore, there is no cause for alarm. Investors, Nigeria is a good economy that has so much of prospect. We have the land, we have the consumers, and we also have government policies that are very, very friendly, including the central bank intervention, either in the form of MPR or any other macroeconomic instrument that is available with the bank.
So how do you see this rate cut shaping Nigeria's economic outlook over the next few months or few weeks?
The next few, what I am expecting inflation to still lower. That is on food inflation. But what is more critical, we want to see manufactured goods. Also, their prices is changing in the next 2-3 months for two reasons. One is that all component that is associated to production of one or two goods in the economy. An example, for instance, an investor who has invested in bakery industry. It's not only the wheat or the flour that is required. There is energy, there are other variable costs. So this will help greatly when government put in place the right taxes, the right tax rate, and at the same time also bring back that sacrifices of Nigerian citizens into the economy by building the infrastructures that are required, fundamentally to have better security. Because if the economy is more secured, definitely all investment will be going and will be sustaining. And if the economy also has better energy potentials, which is being exploited, then also is an addition. Remember, one fundamental aspect that will bring economic prosperity to investors is good policies of the government. The tax reform, which is effective in few months coming. We are expecting at the time when the Nigerian Revenue Service began to exploit all the modalities that is attached to the Revenue Act, there will be additional funds. And this additional fund, like I told you, the central bank must also be more careful in addressing the additional funds that are coming in liquidity form, because it appears that most of the revenues being generated is being shared. So there is need also from the executive angle to look at all the alternatives. It's not all revenues that are coming that must be spent. We have to adopt policy that has been used by the monetary authorities in trying to make a safe haven for our extra dollars, so that at the event of eventuality, this proceed can be used to put the economy and sustain the economy, and then give the economy the right shape that will bring collective prosperity. I am emphasizing on collective prosperity because if we are witnesses an increase in foreign reserve, we are witnesses increase in GDP. So what we are also hoping, when consumers, their confidence is being regained by reducing inflation, we are expecting the resources to be generated to be adequately maintained and then put to use in the right economic sectors for general prosperity of the economy.
Fellowship Directorate at the Institute of Professional Economists and Policy Management, Abuja, Dr. Yusha'u Aliyu. Thank you so much for talking to us and giving us your perspective on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.